Hi boys and girls, I'm going to continue to read Charlotte's Web, and I'm going to begin today with chapter 15, and it's called Crickets. The crickets sang in the grass. They sang the song of summer's ending, a sad, sad song. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when summer is changing into fall, the crickets spread the rumor of sadness and change. Everybody heard the crickets. Avery and Fern heard it as they walked the dusty road. They knew that school would soon begin. The young geese heard it, and they knew that they would never be little goslings again. Charlotte heard it, and she knew that she didn't have much time left. Mrs. Zuckerman, she heard the crickets, and the sadness came over her too. Oh, she sighed, another summer is gone. Lurvy was building a crate for Wilbur, and he heard the crickets, and he knew that it was almost time to start to dig for potatoes. Summer is over and gone, repeated the crickets. How many nights till frost? Goodbye, summer. Goodbye, summer. The sheep heard the crickets, and they felt so uneasy, they broke a hole in the pasture fence and wandered up into the field and across the road. The gander discovered the hole in the fence and followed along. And they walked to the orchard and ate apples, and they were just lying around on the ground. Wilbur was now the center of attention on the farm. Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbur was a pig any man could be proud of. One day, more than 100 people came to the yard to admire him. Charlotte had written the word radiant in her web, and Wilbur really looked radiant as he stood in the golden sunlight. Ever since the spider had befriended him, he had done his best to live up to her reputation. When Charlotte's Web said, "some pig," Wilbur had tried to look just like some pig. When Charlotte's Web said, "terrific," Wilbur had tried to look terrific. And now that the web said radiant, he did everything possible to make himself glow. It is not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur tried his best. He would turn his head ever so slightly and blink his long eyelashes. Then he would breathe deeply, and when the audience got bored, he would spring into the air and do a backflip and a half twist. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. "And how's that for a pig?" Mr. Zuckerman would say. "That pig is radiant." Some of Wilbur's friends in the barn worried for fear that all of this attention would go to Wilbur's head and make him stuck up. But it never did. Wilbur was modest. Fame did not spoil him at all. He still worried about the future, as he could hardly believe that a mere spider would be able to save his life. Sometimes at night he would have a bad dream. He would dream that men were coming towards him with knives and guns. But thank goodness that was only a dream. And in the daytime, Wilbur usually felt happy and confident. No pig ever had truer friends, and he realized that friendship was one of the most satisfying things in the whole world. Even the song of the crickets did not make Wilbur too sad. He knew it was almost time for the county fair, and he was looking forward to going on the trip. If he could distinguish himself at the fair and maybe win some prize money, he was sure that Mr. Zuckerman would let him live. Charlotte had worries of her own, but she kept quiet about them. One morning, Wilbur asked her about going to the fair, and he said, "You're going with me, aren't you, Charlotte?" "Well, I don't know," she replied. The fair comes at a bad time for me. I shall find it inconvenient to leave home, even for a few days." "Why?" asked Wilbur. "Oh, I just don't feel like leaving my web. There's too much going on around here." "Oh, please, please come with me, Charlotte," Wilbur begged. "I need you, Charlotte. I can't stand to go to the fair without you. You've just got to come." "No," said Charlotte. "I believe I'd better stay home and see if I can't get some work done." "What kind of work do you have to do?" Wilbur asked. "Egg laying. It's time I made an egg sack and filled it with eggs." "I didn't know you could lay eggs," said Wilbur. "Oh, sure," she said. "I'm versatile." "What does versatile mean? Does it mean full of eggs?" asked Wilbur. "Certainly not," said Charlotte. "Versatile means I can turn with ease from one thing to another. It means I don't have to limit my activities to spinning and trapping and stunts like that. It means I can do many things." "Why don't you come with me to the fair and lay your eggs there?" said Wilbur. "It would be wonderful and so much fun." Charlotte gave her web a twitch. She said, "I'm afraid not. You don't know the first thing about egg laying, Wilbur. I can't arrange my family duties to sit and manage the county fair. When I get ready to lay eggs, I have to lay eggs, fair or no fair. However, I don't want you to worry about it. You might lose weight. We'll leave it this way. If I can come to the fair, I will." "Oh, good," said Wilbur. "I knew you wouldn't forsake me just when I need you the most, Charlotte." All that day, Wilbur stayed inside, taking life easy in the straw. Charlotte rested and ate a grasshopper. She knew that she couldn't help Wilbur much longer. In a few days, she would have to drop everything and build the beautiful little sack, and then that would hold her eggs. And that's the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16 is called Off to the Fair. The night before the county fair, everybody went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8. Avery lay dreaming that the Ferris wheel had stopped and he was stuck in the very top car. Fern lay dreaming that she was getting sick on the swings. Lurvy was in bed by 8:30. He lay dreaming that he was throwing baseballs and he won a big blanket as a prize. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9. Mrs. Zuckerman lay dreaming about getting a new freezer. Mr. Zuckerman, he lay dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 116 feet long and 92 feet high. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, all except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day. Every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off on his next great adventure. When morning came, everybody got up at daylight. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arables' house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water into her room and took a sponge bath. Then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew there would be boys at the fair. Mrs. Arable scrubbed the back of Avery's neck and wet his hair. And then Avery put on clean underwear, clean blue jeans, and a clean shirt. Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast, and went outside and polished his truck. He had offered to drive everybody to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green, and in gold letters it said, "Zuckerman's Famous Pig." Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion. Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly. He tried to look radiant without getting any food in his ears. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. She said, "Homer, I am going to give that pig a buttermilk bath." "A what?" he said. "A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pig in buttermilk when it got dirty." "Wilbur's not dirty," said Mr. Zuckerman. "Oh, he's filthy behind his ears," she said. "Every time Lurvy slops him, the food runs down around the ears. Then it dries and gets yucky. He also has a smudge on one side of him because he lays in his manure." Mr. Zuckerman said, "He lays in his clean straw." "Well, either way, I'm giving him a buttermilk bath." She went out to the shed, and when she returned, she wore rubber boots, a raincoat, and she carried a bucket of buttermilk, and then she had a wooden spoon paddle. "Edith, you're crazy," said Mr. Zuckerman. But she paid no attention to him. Together they walked down to the pig pen. Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She climbed in with Wilbur and went right to work. Dipping her paddle in the buttermilk, she rubbed him all over. The geese gathered around to see the fun, and so did the sheep and the lambs. Even Templeton poked out his head to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte got so interested, she lowered herself down on a drag line so she could see better. Wilbur stood still and closed his eyes. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and some buttermilk ran right in. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy. When Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, prettiest pig you ever saw. He was pure white, pink around the ears and snout, and as smooth as silk. The Zuckermans then went up to change into their best clothes. Lurvy went to shave and put on his plaid shirt and a purple necktie. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded round and round their mother. They said, "Please, please, please take us to the fair." Then all 7 began saying, "Please, please, 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 please." They made quite a racket. "Children," snapped the goose, "we're staying quietly at home. Only Wilbur is going to the fair." Just then, Charlotte interrupted. Softly, she said, "I shall go too. I have decided to go with Wilbur. He may need me. We can't tell what might happen at the fair. Somebody's got to go along who knows how to write. And I think Templeton better come too. I might need somebody to run me some errands." Oh, Templeton grumbled. "I'm staying right here. I haven't the slightest interest in going to the fair." "That's because you've never gone to one," said the old sheep. "A fair is a rat's paradise. Everybody spills food at a fair. A rat can creep out at night and have a feast. You will find peanut butter sandwiches, hard-boiled eggs, crackers, bits of donuts, particles of cheese, popcorn, frozen custard, candied apples, salted almonds, popsicles, ice cream cones, and wooden sticks of lollipops. Everywhere there's all kinds of junk for a rat to eat, in tents, in booths, in haylofts, everywhere. A fair has enough disgusting leftover food to satisfy a whole army of rats." Templeton's eyes were blazing now. "Is this true?" he asked. "It is true," said the old sheep. "Now go to the fair, Templeton. You will find that the conditions at a fair will surpass your wildest dreams." "Okay, okay, that's enough," said Templeton. "Don't tell me any more. I'm going." "Good," said Charlotte. "Now then, there is no time to wait. Wilbur will soon be put in the crate. Templeton and I must get in the crate right now to hide ourselves." The rat didn't waste a minute. He scampered over to the crate, crawled between the slats, and pulled straw up over him, and now he was hidden and out of sight. "All right," said Charlotte. "I'm next." She sailed into the air, let out a drag line, and dropped gently to the ground. Then she climbed to the side of the crate, and she hid herself in a hole in the wood. "Look out! The people are coming, umming," said the gander. The big truck with Mr. Arable at the wheel backed slowly down toward the barn. Fern and Avery were standing in the back of the truck. "Listen to me," said the old sheep to Wilbur. "When they open the crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go without a hassle. Pigs always resist when they're going to be loaded." "But if I struggle, I might get dirty," said Wilbur. "Never mind that. Do as I say. Struggle. If you were to walk into the crate without resisting, Zuckerman might think that you were bewitched. He'd be scared to go to the fair." Templeton poked his head up through the straw, and he said, "Struggle if you must, but kindly remember that I'm hiding down here in this crate, and I don't want to be stepped on or kicked in the face, so just be careful. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant, when they go to shove you in this crate." "Be quiet, Templeton," said the sheep. "Pull in your head. Look out, here they come. Look radiant, Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk it up, geese." The truck backed slowly to the pig pen and stopped. Mr. Arable got out, walked around to the rear, and lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arable got out of the truck. Fern and Avery jumped to the ground. Mrs. Zuckerman came walking down from the house. Everybody lined up at the fence and stood for a moment admiring Wilbur. Nobody realized that the crate already contained a rat and a spider. "That is some pig," said Mrs. Arable. "He's terrific," said Lurvy. "He's very radiant," said Fern. "Well," said Mrs. Zuckerman, "he's clean anyway. The buttermilk certainly helped." Mr. Arable studied Wilbur carefully. "Yes, he is a wonderful pig," he said. "It's hard to believe that he was the runt of the litter. You'll get some extra good ham and bacon, Homer, when it comes time to kill that pig." Wilbur heard these words, and his heart almost stopped. "I think I might faint," he whispered to the old sheep. "Kneel down," whispered the sheep. "Let the blood rush to your head." Wilbur sank to his knees, all radiance gone. His eyes closed. "Look!" screamed Fern. "He's fading away!" "Hey, watch me!" yelled Avery, crawling on all fours into the crate. "I'm a pig! I'm a pig!" Avery's foot touched Templeton under the straw. "What a mess!" thought the rat. "What fantastic creatures boys are! Why did I let myself get in here?" The geese saw Avery in the crate and cheered. "Avery, you get out of that crate right now," said his mother. "What do you think you are?" Avery said, "I'm a pig. Oink, 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 oink." "Come out of there at once," cried Mrs. Arable. Avery crawled out of the crate on his hands and knees, making faces at Wilbur. Wilbur fainted. "That pig has passed out," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "Throw water on him." "Throw buttermilk," said Avery. The geese cheered. Lurvy ran for a pail of water. Fern climbed into the pen and knelt right by Wilbur's side. "It's sunstroke," said Zuckerman. "The heat, it's just too hot for him." "Maybe he's dead," said Avery. "Come out of that pig pen immediately," yelled his mother. Avery obeyed his mother and climbed into the back of the truck so he could see better. Lurvy returned with cold water and threw it on Wilbur. "Throw some on me!" cried Avery. When Wilbur felt the cold water, he woke up. He rose slowly to his feet, and the geese cheered. "He's up," said Mr. Arable. "I guess there's nothing wrong with him." "I'm hungry," said Avery. "Let's go to the fair. I want a candied apple." "Wilbur's all right now," said Fern. "We can get going. I want to take a ride on the Ferris wheel." Mr. Zuckerman and Mr. Arable and Lurvy grabbed the pig and pushed him head first into the crate. Wilbur began to struggle. The harder the men pushed, the harder he held back. Avery jumped down and joined the men. Wilbur kicked and thrashed and grunted. "There's nothing wrong with this pig," said Mrs. Zuckerman. Finally, Mr. Zuckerman said, "All together now, boys, shove!" Oof, and they pushed Wilbur into the crate. With a final heave, they jammed him in, and the geese cheered. Lurvy nailed some boards across the end so Wilbur couldn't get out. Then, using all their strength, the men picked up the crate and heaved it onto the back of the truck. They did not know that under the straw was a rat, and inside a hole in one of the boards was a big gray spider. They only saw a pig. "Everybody in," called Mr. Arable. He started the truck. The ladies climbed in beside him. Mr. Zuckerman, Lurvy, Fern, and Avery rode in the back. The truck began to move ahead, and the geese cheered. And away went everybody to the fair. And that is the end of chapter 16.